Imagine for a moment that you've just got home after a long day. You've set your things down not at all in their proper place. Your well-worn HMD of choice is placed prominently in the center of the only cleaned out space in your room. You quickly grab a bottle of water and perhaps a snack before placing the headset over your eyes, breathing a sigh of relief as the screen lights up and the warm, inviting glow of your virtual home greets you. Quickly, you open your friends list, and a pit forms in your stomach as you see for the third night in a row, you're alone. Well, not alone. You have hundreds of random people you've met in passing who are online, but none of them are your real friends, though. Well, there is that one dude that you met in an escape room, but he has his world set to private, and you don't really feel like asking for an invite. There's that other person you watched a movie with, but their friend broke up with your friend and you're not sure where you stand with them anymore. Oh well, looks like another night of drinking games for you, and another 5 people to the rando list. Another night, essentially, alone. Before we get into it, I'm not a licensed medical professional. Nothing said in this video should be taken as medical advice. I am only speaking from years of personal experience and observation. Please enjoy the video. Many will swear by social VR as a means of managing their depression, and on the surface level it may be easy to see why. Self-expression without the need to attach much to your real identity, a constant flow of distraction to keep your dopamine levels high, and your brain in another state of being. Though these distractions may serve as a stopgap in the short term, without moderation it can become like a poison, reinforcing and pushing you back into old habits. Escapism is defined as the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. And with a definition like that, it hardly sounds like a good thing, but the truth is, we all experience escapism in one way or another. It has become an important coping mechanism for us as humans, especially with the world that we find ourselves in lately. It's all too easy to become engrossed in a book, the latest show, or a game. But for most people, these things are easy enough to step away from and go back to a normal life. Now think back to when you most easily lost track of time. Maybe it was when you were with others, or perhaps working on something creative, or mindlessly scrolling through social media. The reason these are such potent time spenders is because they lack any delineation or break. You finish when you feel you're finished. And when it comes to VR, however, it's even worse. You are fully immersed in a world. Time can slip away nearly guilt-free without the interruption most get by reaching the next chapter, episode, and before you know it, the sun's coming up and you have to be in work in 3 hours. So instead you call in sick just to play a little longer. This might sound familiar to those with depression, and you might know how quickly this can become cyclic. It has never been easier to connect with others in a meaningful way. Social VR presents an atmosphere similar to that of an old-school chat room, if you're old enough to remember one of those, with most of the body language and cues of a face-to-face conversation. Eye contact, vocal tones, and proximity, all with the added benefit of making anyone you dislike vanish with the click of a block button. This can foster a sense of safety, making it easier to trust others, allowing us to grow closer together to those around us in a much shorter time. But the same applies to losing those connections. If you don't keep up with them, it's very easy to lose touch and grow distant. Then there are those that you see almost every day. The ones who are always around, who you do almost everything with. The friends you feel like you've known your whole life, even if you just met them a month ago. They become the reason you log in. Your mood becomes dependent on if you see them that day. But real life happens more often than not, and even those friends can disappear as quickly as they came, leaving you to start over again. Constantly losing these emotional anchors can leave you untethered, and jaded to opening up to others again. If you've ever been bitten by the VR bug, you know things are just different there. While you may not be able to smell, taste, or touch, those senses matter less and less as you fly through the clouds, explore the deepest part of the ocean of a different planet, or just relax in a home that you could never afford in real life. Real life can become stale. You might even find yourself reaching to use features from VR while you're out grocery shopping, only to be sorely disappointed when you can't grab something from a distance, or mute the annoying crying toddler behind you in the checkout line. This can cause you to sink into a deeper depressive state whenever you're not in VR, which ends up being most of our waking lives for those with jobs and responsibilities. Sometimes it can be such a jarring experience removing your headset, being disoriented for a second and realizing, oh, right. You're no longer in that fantastical pristine place, but instead in a room with old laundry on a chair and a stain on the carpet where you spilled your drink last night. It leaves you wondering if you should have just left the headset on. Have you ever caught someone in a lie, but just chose to ignore it because you can't imagine why they chose to lie about something so silly? And ultimately, what does it matter if it's just a small white lie? This happens a lot in social VR, especially if you spend any amount of time listening and paying attention to the people around you. Understandably, people often choose to take on a fake persona when interacting in VR, even if it's just themselves at 110%. No one wants to be thought of as boring, especially when everyone around you seems to be special, but some take it a step too far, to the point of complete dissociation from their real selves. It can get to a point where their friends begin to catch on, and they are constantly struggling to pile another lie onto the heap to keep the narrative going. And it really is tempting to scatter a few white lies here and there just to polish out your rough edges. You can try on a personality in the same way you can try on a new avatar. A different room, a different crowd, a different you. Eventually, making you feel like it would be better to be anyone but you. Now, if you've made it this far, you might think that I hate social VR, and that it's an agent of the devil sent to make us all depressed. But come on guys, this is a VR channel. I love VR. So I'd like to talk about the positive things. The things that can really help you through depressive states. Starting with one of the most powerful forces for combating depression, creativity. Social VR provides numerous outlets to let our creative side shine. From making worlds that people can enjoy, to expressing yourself through creating avatars even if they're just for you. You can sing in front of a crowd. Tell a story that you've written, create a game, or even a gallery of your real-world art digitized and brought to the virtual world. I once met a guy who spent all of his time drawing portraits of people who were AFK using the in-game pens, and he would just wait there to see if they liked the drawing, because it made him happy when they did. Or myself, for example. I found balance and enjoyment in life making dumb one-liner skits and posting them here on YouTube. There are just so many avenues to express yourself in positive and constructive ways, especially when engaging with other like-minded people. Which brings me to the next segment. Joining a decentralized community, even outside of VR, can have myriad positive effects on your well-being and mental health. But these positive effects can be amplified greatly in a digital space, giving you access to people from all over the world who may be going through the exact same things you are, or have the same interests or hobbies, with the combined benefit of anonymity and not having the pressure to stay if things are not what you expected. You are free to communicate with hundreds or even thousands of people in some of the smallest of niche interests. It's important to keep this at a healthy level, however, because it's a fine line between being an active part of a community and being completely dependent on them. I've never met a more positive and welcoming community than the VR community, and with all the small sub-communities, it takes next to no effort to find a place where you belong. Just watch out for cults, I guess, and ignore the incels in the bathroom, unless of course that's your thing. With even a chance encounter with a stranger, you can start exploring things about yourself that you never knew existed, never thought to think about yourself, or even in some cases dared to consider. Calling back to the liar segment of this video, this is the healthy side, where instead of trying on a personality to impress others, you try on doing things you've always wanted to try, or were afraid to try. You can pretend to be a more confident person than you are, and finally get on stage to do a stand-up routine at open mic night. You can try out new hobbies, or heck, even explore a kink, in what is really a safe space with like-minded people. Fake it until you make it, in the best kind of way. It can be these things that you take back with you into the real world. as a more complete, well-rounded person. It is through exposure to new thoughts and ideas that we grow as people, and can begin to untangle ourselves from what we thought we once were into something more freed, more open, and more honest with ourselves and with others. Social VR can be filled with potential pitfalls into depressive episodes, but it also has the potential to be some of the most powerful therapy imaginable in the fight against depression. Like most things in life, self-moderation and self-awareness is important. You need to be able to know your limits, and be able to recognize when you start slipping into bad habits. Take a day off or two once in a while, and do something else you enjoy. And always remember, the avatars you're talking to are real people, with their own life circumstances that you can't even begin to imagine.